All of your local and state news in one place. Tune into The District on WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station. I'm here, Taylor Allen, with John Cole, and we are here for The District another week, and a lot of things have gone down already.
I know this week may be the most newsworthy so far. As I look at our bullet points and the 5 topics we want to discuss, Taylor, I think this one might be the most jam-packed show, maybe 30 minutes. As it goes on, we know that it's getting better and better. And the cool thing about this week, the list of topics we have for you today are not only Pennsylvania-based, a lot of them are centered around Philadelphia, Taylor. Except the last one. We'll let the listener hear that in the 5th statement of our show, and that will be later on. But anyway, the first topic that is Temple-related that has gained national coverage.
National coverage, yep.
To say the least, is Friday night's incident when we got the TUAlert. Who would have thought it would have blown up as much as it has since then? But Taylor, go in and describe what happened, and we'll talk about it.
TUAlert exactly stated, increased police activity due to large groups of juveniles along Broad Street on main campus. Police are responding, avoid the area. That is all that most students knew around that time. What happened later that the world found out was that 4 juveniles were arrested in a series of flash mob-style attacks on Temple's campus that left both students and police officers injured. The report says that students were punched and kicked, and an officer was even touched to the ground. This is coming from NBC 10.
A horse was punched in the face, too.
Yeah,
police
a horse was punched in the face. What later came about was apparently there was a social media group that said, all these kids, let's just hang out on Broad Street, and I guess too many kids came and got out of hand, and one thing led to another.
Yeah, and were you at Temple's campus?
I wasn't even in the city, actually.
No, you weren't.
When I got this TUAlert. I thought it was just very peculiar. Quite honestly, it didn't really say anything about what happened. All it said was that, there's a large amount of kids. For anything, I kind of thought,
which isn't alert-worthy, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's why I was are you just profiling kids?
Yeah, exactly, which is odd. And this is something that I think Temple's been monitoring a bit more as of late, because I could speak to this just a couple weeks ago for WHIP for the football broadcast. Temple was taking on UCF, and that was Saturday, October 25th. Temple was on the road at UCF, and we did a broadcast at the draft horse. And, of course, the draft horse is located out in Cecil B. Moore Ave, right beyond Broad, before 15th.
Yes.
And right off campus. And we were there the whole game. It's a Saturday night, so you see large groups of people walk by. That's not a big deal. But we saw a large group of teenagers specifically, and there was big groups of people were running down Cecil B. Moore, and there's a bigger police presence, and it was odd. Nothing to our knowledge happened, but it was just strange to see groups of people not just walking, because that, it's a college. There's a college and a neighborhood. We're in Philadelphia. A lot of people live in this area. That's expected to see large groups of people. It was odd because there were people running away, wondering what was going on, and that was not last Saturday, the previous Saturday, and it was really odd. We were thinking, what's going on outside? We were inside the bar that whole time doing our broadcast, but we were still thinking, what's going on? And then Friday night's incident occurs, where 4 juveniles were arrested. Yeah.
News sources came out, multiple, talking about how it was reported, and there was also controversy about that.
Yeah.
Some people don't like the fact that they just talked about juveniles or assumed that they were community kids. I understand there's an assumption there, but I guess they have a point. You don't really know, particularly if these teenagers were of the community.
Mm.
I know specifically, and full disclosure, my boss is Solomon Jones. He recently did an op-ed about this, and he said that there has never been comfortable relations between community and Temple students. And he says this as a person who grew up in North Philadelphia and attended Temple University.
Okay,
he did get his degree from here. So he drew a bigger picture of saying that community relations aren't that great between Temple students and the community. It is very much a distinction. That was his argument.
It's been an ongoing issue, Taylor, and as someone who's now a senior at Temple University, I could speak to having lived in Philadelphia my whole life, granted not in North Philly, so I don't know specifically, what that neighborhood goes through. Totally understand. But I've known for years and years the narrative and the discussion is that Temple and the North Philadelphia community have not exactly had the best relationship. That's been a story not just in the past couple years, it's been the story for decades, Taylor. And an issue like this comes up, a story where I think some people were annoyed at. One was the wording. And I'll tell you this, the word juvenile. we discussed this on Rational Radio a couple of days ago, I believe. And when you think of the word juvenile, what do you think immediately
You
of?
immediately think juvenile delinquent.
Bingo. Juvenile has a negative connotation for the most part.
And it does.
Where if you would have said minors in the area, first off, I think the TUAlert was poor. Because you can't just say there's increased police act due to large groups, because that just doesn't make sense. But if they would have mentioned someone was assaulted or whatever, then that makes sense. Why is there an increased police presence? Just because there's more kids walking around.
Yeah.
You know?
It just has a connotation of, like, are you profiling? And that was my thought immediately when I saw the TUAlert and didn't know the story.
Mm-hmm. And moving forward with this specific story is that the night it happened, we heard briefly what had happened. And, it was just a Temple story. We've seen some video footage of it since then released from security cameras. And we've heard people's stories of what happened to them. Girl kicked in the face, sent to the hospital, contemplating should she leave Temple University. Now her father talking about, a nightmare this is. And we're seeing now, then other outlets started to pick this up. The Washington Post picked up part of the story from a girl who writes for the Temple News. The Daily Mail, who's in England, picked up part of this. So this has been a story that wasn't just specifically like Temple kids care about it. This has been picked up by the whole country.
Because it's a very sensitive topic. It's not just the incident itself. It's a broader picture of, like, how did we get to this point? How did we get here?
Yeah. And with this upcoming weekend, Taylor's Halloween, and it's also Parents' Weekend, by the way, at Temple University. So there's more and more people that come for these special events, whether it be Halloween, whether it be Parents' Weekend. There's going to be more people on campus. The question we just talked about on Rational Radio, and we'll talk here today, is that we're going to see an increased police presence. We know that's already going to happen.
Yeah.
We've already seen them vamp it up since this incident happened. I was at a flag football game Tuesday night, and the game didn't get over till around 11:30 at night, 11:45, and we were driving back. But you even seen increased police on bikes at least that night, and that was a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Wait until this weekend when there's groups and groups of kids walking around.
Oh yeah.
Around the area. So I wonder to you, what do you think we expect to see this weekend?
I expect to see police officers expanding their patrol. Like, not just the campus. They're probably going to go more into it. Like, they're probably going to go, like, all the way down to Jefferson and Oxford. I feel like they're really going to expand it.
Do you think it's a good move?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I understand that recent events did happen, but I don't think what it could really do, quite frankly. I have no idea.
I think just the increased police presence shows those who want to act, want to commit a crime, such as what had happened. I guess it shows that the increased police presence shows that if you are trying to commit an act of crime, whatever it is, whether it's a college kid, person not from college, whatever it is, or if there's increased police presence there, the notion is that you are more likely to watch your back thinking, if I do said crime, I could get detained or stopped right away. But having said that, who knows what we're going to see this weekend regardless.
I just hope people don't feel more threatened because of an increased police presence. Like, I don't want anyone, whether you are a student or someone of the community, to think that you are constantly watched. I hope that also does not increase crime, because people who feel like they're being stared at often do react a certain way.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest story at Temple, and it's just very newsworthy that this isn't just specifically Temple-based, not Philadelphia-based. This is something that has been picked up by news outlets worldwide, actually, which is, maybe not for the best reasons Temple's in the news, but nonetheless, it's something you have to talk about when a story like that happens.
Speaking of Temple, other news happened at Temple. The last Senate debate happened here, and you actually covered it with Ryan
Yes,
Coachella,
I did,
right?
yeah.
How was that?
Good debate. I think Jim Gardner did a fantastic job.
As a moderator?
Absolutely. It was only an hour long. This was the second and final debate between the incumbent Republican Senator Pat Toomey and Katie McGinty, the Democratic challenger. And we've had the opportunity to interview McGinty twice now, so we've seen her points of view, and we're familiar with Pat Toomey's. But Toomey's the experienced politician who's held public office for quite some time. Before he was a United States Senator, he was a United States Congressman. Before that, he was in the business field. But nonetheless, he's a more experienced debater. And then the storyline going into the first debate, I believe, was how is Katie McGinty going to react where she's run for public office before. She never won. She ran for governor, lost in the primary to Tom Wolf, became Tom Wolf's chief of staff. only for a short amount of time until realized she had an opportunity to run for the United States Senate, runs in that primary, and wins.
Yes.
But nonetheless, Toomey's the more experienced debater. And I think the story was, how is McGinty going to do at that stage? And I think for the most part, myself and Ryan wrote an article recapping it. And we gathered that it was relatively even. I don't think there was a clear winner. I think both had their strong points, both had their low points.
Okay.
It's weird to think the biggest takeaway from it was that I think Jim Garner did a phenomenal job in just less than an hour they had to have this debate. And there was 2 short intermissions, which on a presidential debate, you don't have any intermissions. It goes straight through at the presidential level, it's 90 minutes, and you're there talking about it for the whole time, no breaks. This was just a 60-minute conversation, and there was 2 brief minute intermissions.
Okay.
So it was noteworthy that in just an hour, Jim Garner was able to cover such a wide variety of topics. I see you have it here in your notes. I mean, you had police shootings discussed, abortion, taxes, healthcare, foreign engagement, the endorsement of Trump and Clinton. How do they differ from them? There was such a wide variety of conversations discussed, and Garner did a good job at his goal, and he had like the little stopwatch there of just being it a minute long. A couple times, of course, it's bound to go over the minute because, conversations go that way. But having said that, it was nice that there was such a wide variety of topics discussed. To me, when I watched that debate, I like how, they kind of attacked each other because it was almost like the moderator took himself out of it and let them do the debating, which is a different style. Some people enjoy it. I didn't mind that necessarily. But my feeling after the first presidential debate was that I felt like it was only halfway over. I felt like I only heard a couple issues when I wanted to hear more.
Yeah.
This debate within just an hour I thought was really good that Garner got everything in. So,
well, that's the difference of a moderator like taking the reins and being like, okay, we're done, we're going to this conversation,
correct,
rather than letting it drag. I don't want to say drag on, but letting it unfold naturally. It's just 2 different styles.
Correct. And I thought Gardner's style was the antithesis of what Lester Holt did, but nonetheless, I was a fan of it. There are certain points in which each candidate looked stronger. I think Katie McGinty made a good point of kind of painting Pat Toomey as the guy who was on Wall Street, has affiliation with his banks, Pennsylvania banking. His bank was participating in a certain activity that is illegal in 35 states in the United States of America, but not in Pennsylvania. So was his practice, what he was doing in the PA, illegal? No. But in certain areas it is, so some may see it as unethical or not. Yeah. That's for the person to determine. But McGinty did a good job at kind of painting Toomey as this guy who cannot connect to average Americans. And I think Toomey did a very good job with McGinty saying she is a rubber stamp for a Hillary Clinton presidency.
Yeah, he really emphasized that. He said straight up that she just would be obedient to her.
And I think Pennsylvania, we know the electorate, of the Keystone State is that it's voted Democrat at the presidential level every election since 1992. The last time they voted Republican was 1988. Mm-hmm. But since then, it's been heavily Democrat. So although you say that, it's still rather moderate. This isn't a very liberal state. No. There's liberal portions. There's Philadelphia has a liberal pocket, and Pittsburgh.
And then the rest are they dabble.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good way to word it, Taylor. And I think that, if you're a Democrat running in the state of Pennsylvania, you may have to champion a bit more moderate causes. I think Pennsylvania is somewhere in the middle. They do lean Democrat, but it's a rather moderate state. And Toomey is trying to paint McGinty as this far-left candidate that is just going to do whatever Clinton says. And I think that was a very good point. And a great question from Gardner saying, Toomey is asserting that you are just, you're going to listen to whatever Hillary Clinton has to say. In what ways do you differ from her? And they talked about Gitmo, which is Guantanamo Bay. And the one difference McGinty mentioned from Clinton saying, I would not close Guantanamo Bay, but it's odd because that's not really been a main issue.
Yeah, to pick one issue, that wasn't the issue to choose.
But having said that, I think it's telling that Toomey did a good job saying, look, she is just there. Whatever Hillary says she's going to do. So that they both did a good job on that. But I know there's other topics you have here written down. You would like to discuss that as well.
I mean, I was not physically there, but from what I have read and what I've seen is that certain topics they've already covered in previous debates as well. They've already talked about police shootings. They've talked about taxes, certain things like that. What I just found pretty notable was there was one part, the moderator straight up went to McGinty and said, you're for the middle class, at least you say so, but you did sign off on higher taxes, specifically for the middle class.
Yeah.
And she didn't really backtrack it. She kind of was just like, I'm always for the middle class, but she didn't deny that she did it.
I mean, we know the Democratic point of view tends to be, you raise taxes on certain groups of people, and then hopefully, to their point of view, it benefits, it does for the greater good, I suppose, is the way to word it. Yeah, they were just some of the big issues discussed, I think, and the two lowlights, I thought, of the debate. We'll start with Katie McGinty's answer about abortion. Now, we know that McGinty's pro-choice, and most Democrats are. And I think, as a matter of fact, there's even certain people who are moderates that are pro-choice now, and there's some Republicans that are pro-choice.
Yeah, I mean, most Republicans, I mean, this is a broad statement, but I would say even most Republicans approve of abortion in certain cases. Like
Correct.
When it's like rape, incest, or...
which Toomey has said.
Yes.
The debate now is between the Democratic Party has been to whether they should repeal the Hyde Amendment or not, and talking about late-term abortions. And McGinty brings up the abortion conversation when she's asked about it, and says how it's an issue between the family and politicians shouldn't make that. Now, that's been used effectively by Democrats. We've seen Tim Kaine use it. We've seen Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. The way she described it, personally, I did not think she gave the best answer backing it up. She discussed talking with a family in southwestern Pennsylvania, going through the tough issue of whether they should have an abortion or not. They said they went through the whole process of buying the kid, their soon-to-be child, clothing, a bed, et cetera, buying this kid some of the essentials for when he or she is born. They found out there was going to be a disability or a defect with the kid, and they ultimately go through with the abortion, saying how that's such a tough decision for the family and thinks that ultimately it should be up to the family. That, to me, wasn't the best scenario to bring up because hearing that this kid's going to have a disability, therefore they're going to decide not to have it. I don't think that was... Example. In the state of Pennsylvania, no less. That is not going to win you over moderate voters, which both are trying to appeal to right now. We know the far left's voting for McGinty. For the most part, the far right's going to vote for Toomey, although Toomey is...
pretty moderate himself. Like, he's not...
At least specifically on gun control, he's... Yeah. The bases of their party know who they're going to vote for. Right now, it's their job in a neck-and-neck race, the most expensive race in the country for U.S. Senate. It's their job to appeal to those last moderates and get them on their side, the swing voters.
Yes.
And I think that answer from McGinty was not the best way to reassure people, why she's pro-choice. I think she could have gave better examples because I think Democrats have run on being pro-choice and have done so finely, but I think that was not the best answer. And then just to go on Toomey's worst answer, was again this Donald Trump problem he has. He's still yet to endorse him.
Yeah. He just says, I think he said something to the effect of, I know that there's problems with my party's leader, but at least, I'm not a puppet that McGinty is. Essentially to the effect, that's what he said.
So he's trying to paint himself...
He's trying to deflect it really hard.
In recent ads, Toomey has used the slogan, him being independent leadership for Washington. Like I mentioned, the state of Pennsylvania appreciates someone who isn't a rubber stamp for their party.
Yeah.
But one thing that includes being independent and political courage is saying where you side on a candidate. Toomey's answer, once again, was saying... Out of our 300-some million people, these are the best two we have, not being happy with their choices, which I think there's a decent amount of Americans that feel that way. But then his answer, albeit not endorsing Donald Trump, was the closest thing we've heard to a Donald Trump endorsement from the incumbent senator thus far, saying, certain things Trump has said have been appalling and I've not been in favor of. He's like, but Donald Trump is more likely to repeal and replace Obamacare. Hillary Clinton will not. That answer in itself, and later in the debate, he raved about how poor Obamacare was. And so, point being, Toomey didn't endorse him, but that was the closest thing to it. And I think and Jim Gardner asked as a follow-up, don't your voters want to know where you're going to vote for president? And he said, I don't think they really care. And I think that was a poor answer where I think there's a good amount of people that want to know where he sides.
Especially since, people are voting the same day for the presidential debate as the congressional race. That's the same day. That's the same ballot.
And I think that was just the wrong way to go about it, where it's this late in the game. There's a couple things we can confirm. Donald Trump's not going to release his tax returns, and Pat Toomey isn't going to say who he's going to vote for.
But at this late in the game, I don't think there's many undecided voters. Whoever was going to vote for McGinty is probably going to vote for McGinty.
But the small portion of undecideds could determine this election because, again, a few different polls, and they're all close. So that last debate was their chance, I guess, to try to Bring some of them over. But anyway, third topic is actually another huge one. So that just shows how jam-packed of this episode of The District really is. Kathleen Kane, the former attorney general, has been sent to jail. You have the report.
Officially, she has now she's going to jail. She's been sentenced to 10 to 23 months in jail. The former district attorney is charged with orchestrating an illegal news leak to take down a political enemy. She pleaded for leniency, pretty much saying that, she wanted to take care of her 2 teenage sons and the impact on him. The judge was not having it. She's not immediately going to jail. She'll remain free until she exhausts her state appeals, which could take months. But it is official. She will be having her time.
And she pleaded for leniency, urging the judge to think about the impact on her 2 sons.
Yeah.
That are both teenagers right now.
Yeah. So, this has been a case that's been going on for over a year now.
And Democrats would love to see this finally end. Because this has been something that's been plaguing their party. It's been a black eye, quite frankly, on the party that,
Yeah, Kathleen Kane could have been the next biggest, political superstar, essentially. She was the first Democrat to have this office, and she was the first woman to have office. So on both fronts, it's kind of an embarrassment, because she could have been so much bigger than what she was.
She got backing from the Clintons when she ran in the primary. She ran in the primary against the current Undersecretary of the United States Army, Patrick Murphy, who was my congressman from my neighborhood. And Kathleen Kane was part of the Clinton camp. So the campaigning happened, the Clintons came for Kane. And when Kane got elected again, she was the first woman to be elected Attorney General. She was seen as a rising star in the Democratic Party. There were those that thought her next step it could be governor.
Yeah.
We've seen people... The step from Attorney General to Governor is a step people make quite often. And since I mentioned her connection with the Clintons, Bill Clinton, Attorney General in Arkansas decades ago, then became governor. So this is... People looked at Kane as she is maybe one of the future faces of the Democratic Party, not just at the local level in Pennsylvania, maybe nationwide. And she broke the law to the point where not only is she, she stepped down, she's done with her position, she's sentenced to jail. Yeah. And I think that's a really big political story. That, again, has been picked up by news outlets across the country.
Yeah, the Washington Post did a whole expose exactly of the timeline of how she rose to power and her ultimate fall from power. So it is definitely a national story. This is not just a Philly story.
And moving forward, it's definitely shaping the way this Attorney General's race is going on right now. And I'm curious to see who will be the victor there. The Republicans are certainly running on that the last Attorney General was corrupt and she was a Democrat. Therefore, it's time for a new face in there. It's time for someone not corrupt, obviously. That's going to be their message. Josh Shapiro is the Democrat running for Attorney General, and he has got major party endorsements from the Democratic Party, from the likes of Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and several others. So that one is going to be very interesting. We'll talk about that, of course, on election night, because if Shapiro retains the office, then I guess the damage that Kane had done didn't do enough to not bring another Democratic in. But Shapiro is to lose. Kane ultimately probably would be looked at as the reason why a Democrat is not the Attorney General.
Again. It's not like she went away quietly.
No, she didn't just resign. She sentenced to 10 to 23 months in jail. How much she will serve, that remains to be seen.
It says 12 to 23 months, but honestly, she might get off on good behavior. It's not like...
That's the point. So we don't know exactly how much she will serve just yet.
Yeah.
Point is, though, that sentence says a lot.
Speaking of corruption, Kenney now revises gift rules. Pretty much anyone under the city council or anyone who works directly under Mayor Kenney is now under different regulations on what they can and cannot accept through favors, whether that's from lobbyists, whether it's from civilians, whether it's from pretty much anything. There's now set rules and regulations. This is coming in light of recent person, District Attorney Seth Williams, how he was under fire for having $45,000 worth of gifts over a period of about 5 years.
And I think the timing of this not only relates to Williams, also relates to the current investigation of John Doherty.
Also,
union boss, in which he's currently being investigated by the FBI, and also tied in with that was Bobby Heenan, who again is being investigated. Bobby Heenan is, I believe, he's the majority leader, the Democratic majority leader in city council. So Heenan's tied in with it. Doherty's tied in, and we know that Jim Kenney had the endorsement of Johnny Doc, and John Doherty did a good amount of fundraising.
He did.
For Mayor Kenney when he was running in the primary against Hardy Williams. So there's that connection where I think Kenney had to address it in some way. This is the way he wanted to go about it, because He does not want this to linger. This the Johnny Doc story, the Williams story, this is something that we've not seen the end of.
Oh, not at all. I mean, I don't want to be so morbid and pessimistic, but unfortunately, gifts and favors is very common in the political world, especially on the locality levels, because you can get away with a little bit more because you don't have as many eyes on you.
Yep, but there's less eyes, so more corruption.
More corruption, and I think this is Kenney's way of at least trying to lessen the damage, at least trying to put water on some of the fire that has happened in the past few months.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm not surprised Kenney passed this, but I'm curious to see
how effective it'll be.
Yeah, how effective it will be, because we know the political landscape in Philadelphia. And then finally, on the fifth topic,
PA lawmakers approve ban on naming officers in shootings. Pretty much what this means is that the Republican legislature, essentially, has passed a bill saying that you cannot disclose the name of the police officer in wake of a shooting. If you do, you have to wait at least 30 days. And if you do do it before this 30-day mark, essentially, you will be charged with a second-degree misdemeanor. So this is like really, really faulty, I guess you can say, consequences for releasing someone's name. Personally, I'll be honest here, I'm not this fond of this, just because, I mean, in the world of journalism, I think the only people who should not be named ever are minors and sexual assault victims. Mm-hmm. Those are the only two groups that I think should ever be withheld. But the people who support this bill say that police officers should be protected because of their families.
And it's interesting because this is something I can talk to just a bit about, because the person who introduced this bill is Republican State Rep Martina White, and she is my councilwoman. Or not councilwoman, state rep.
Yes.
So she's actually currently in a re-election battle right now against Democratic challenger Matt Dara. And White has run on, she's gotten the endorsement of the police, and I think this is another way to try to appease the FOP. With a bill like this, I'm curious to see now, what does Tom Wolf do?
Tom Wolf has only commented that he will review the bill, but he has not said anything else publicly. I mean, again, the story just broke today, so...
And I wonder what kind of pushback or what kind of praise... So whatever side you're on, if you are against the bill, you will receive praise from Governor Wolf if you were to veto it. But on the same token, let's say he signs it into law, there will be some Republicans that will be happy he did that. Mm-hmm. They will be looked as, I guess, maybe a bipartisan effort, kind of.
Maybe.
Even though it's a Republican-controlled legislator, they would look at it as Wolf agreeing with Republicans on something, because they're painting him as a super, very far left liberal. But at the same token, if he's to sign it into law, he's going to upset a significant portion of the liberal wing of his party.
Yeah, he definitely will.
And I'm curious to see. He's got a tough decision on his hand right now.
Yeah, and this is a week after it was made. A bill was approved stating that police could have more body cameras. I mean, granted, with less access to the public, but this is a bill that happened right a week ago, and now they're also pushing this bill. So I kind of want to know, what is the accelerated reason for so many police shooting related bills?
I guess it's just precautionary, because we've seen, in the news time and time again, of incidents in different states. Pennsylvania really hasn't been in the forefront of it per se.
Not really. No.
I mean, of course, there's police shootings that have here
everywhere.
Everywhere between police and civilians, no matter who's in the right or wrong. We've seen it in every state, but Pennsylvania hasn't exactly been, I would say, at the forefront, at least in the national spotlight. But maybe they're doing this now in light of, if something were to happen, they have laws in place for it. But Governor Wolf has a tough decision on his hand, I think, Taylor.
Yeah. He does.
And I guess before we close the show, as this has been our longest episode of The District, by the way, Dick Yingling, the owner of Yingling, America's oldest brewery. Eric Trump visited there in Pottsville, and he told Eric Trump, "Our guys are behind your father."
Wow.
And talked basically endorsing Donald Trump for president, saying, quote, "We need him in there." And since then, Democratic legislators, Brian Sims being one of them, and several others on social media have gone out saying they will refuse to drink Yingling, and now they're boycotting the lager, America's oldest brewery, based right out of Pennsylvania. So I'm curious to see now what type of effect it will have on their business. We just talked about it on Rational. I don't think it's going to have a huge effect, because the same people they tick off and that will now boycott it, they may gain some Trump supporters in thinking this guy is behind my candidate, therefore I'm going to support his business. So I think it's a give and take thing. I don't think it'll have a huge effect on their business, quite frankly.
I think it'll depend whether or not Donald Trump takes the election. Like, if he loses, then okay, probably maybe like a small dip, but not by much. But if he wins, I think his sales will probably increase.
Which, yeah, that's really, yeah.
And the people who are Donald Trump supporters are probably going to buy 2 or 3 packs even more than they do now. So,
yeah. And if they don't drink Yingling, maybe they will decide to now. You have the right to endorse whoever you want to. It's just a bold move as a business owner, because you know that
you are isolating some people.
There could be repercussions for putting your political opinion out there.
Yeah, wow. Well, what a way to end the show.
I know, yeah. And ending with this on a Thursday with talking about a beer endorsement. But anyway, that's all the time we have today for the district. For myself, John Cole, and Taylor Allen.
Keep watching. Stay tuned on WHIP.